You can be high functioning, high achieving, all of these things and still settling on the sidelines. And a lot of people don't understand that. Like I use that concept a lot. I was doing all these really big things, getting awards and promotions and climbing at the quote unquote early prime of my life. And yet I felt like I was not tapping into any of my full potential. I was really playing in a safe space.
Welcome to the Anniston Rickstein Show. This space is created for the woman coming home to her voice, her power, her way. For the woman remembering who she really is, beneath the noise, beneath the roles, beneath the world's expectations. I'm Anniston, transformational guide, spiritual teacher, best-selling author, and creator, here to walk beside you, to share stories, wisdom, and energy that guide you back home. Here, we lead from the inside out. We create from overflow, not hustle. We rise not by becoming someone else, but by remembering who we've always been. This isn't just a podcast. It's a homecoming. So let's dive in. Welcome back to the Anniston Rickstein Show. I am so happy you're here. My guest today is someone I have known for a few years now, and honestly, someone I have just always kept my eye on because she's the kind of woman who walks her talk in a way that is genuinely rare. Michelle Rios spent over 25 years building a successful career in public relations. She climbed to the C-suite and she was on track to take over. So from the outside, the story looked complete. And then her teenage son asked her a question she couldn't unhear. When is it going to be your turn, Mom? Well, that question changed everything. Today, Michelle coaches CEOs, entrepreneurs, high achievers who have reached the summit and found it doesn't feel the way they thought it would. She hosts one of the fastest growing personal development podcasts out there, Live Your Extraordinary Life. And she is the living proof of what happens when an accomplished woman stops building someone else's vision and starts building her own. This conversation goes deep, y'all. We talk about the awakening she had at 27, what it actually took to finally make the leap, and she shares a story from late last year that I think is going to stay with you long after this episode ends. If you have been sitting with a knowing that you haven't fully acted on yet, this episode is for you, sister. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Anniston Rickstein Show. I am so excited that you're joining today, that you are tuning in to this incredible episode. And boy, do I have an incredible guest to introduce you today. Michelle, I'm so glad that you're here.
Oh, Anniston, it is my pleasure. I'm excited to do this.
Well, thank you. So Michelle and I have known each other now, I feel like for a couple of years. Our paths have continued to cross in really cool, exciting ways, but I'm always keeping an eye on what she's doing and she's always keeping an eye on what I'm doing. And I think one of the things I've really always admired about you, and it's something that I really related to, was that you really exemplify that woman who was so successful and still is, who had a path, but who wasn't afraid to shift direction when your purpose started calling in a deeper way. So I know a lot of my audience might not know you yet. And so why don't you tell us, how did you get to teaching women how to live an extraordinary life?
Oh, such a good question. And the reality was it wasn't an overnight decision, right? Like these things rarely are. I had been working in the corporate agency world. I was in public relations and communications for more than 25 years. And in the course of that, even from the beginning, early on, I had had these moments and I had a very big awakening that we can talk about at some point in this conversation at around age 27. And yet, despite that awakening, I kept on the path I was on. So I had this newfound awareness that perhaps a lot of the goals that I had set out for myself were not necessarily intentionally mine, but some seemed like really good and responsible goals to pursue. So I kept climbing the ladder, but I brought a level of awareness with me that I was a bit of a odd duckling in the environment. Like I soon became like much more compassionate and empathetic and the leader that people were like, get on her team. She's going to be much more understanding and help you than maybe in others. And perhaps than I could have been when I was a bit younger. But I continued working in this space. And it really took me getting to midlife to go, I don't want to do this anymore. And it wasn't because I was burnt out. I was not at the point of like throwing in the towel. That had happened many times over earlier in my career.
Mhm.
And frankly, when my son was much younger. I got to a point where he's a bit older. I had a couple of different moments, but really the one that was the precipitous for me was we were away on a trip. We had gone away every year on one of these, what I always call like La Dolce Vita experience, where we'd go away and just let our identities from back home stay home and dream and give ourselves a space to just imagine what if. If we weren't doing what we were doing, what would we be doing? And for me, the calling was always, I mean, from early in my 20s, I wanted to speak on stages. I wanted to write books. I wanted to be really doing work that I felt mattered more than a lot of the business problems I was solving for on a day to day basis.
Mhm.
And I kind of didn't have any more excuses. I kind of was in this moment, literally in the middle of Greece at Poseidon's temple, sitting there watching the sun go down. And I remember thinking, why not now? I had no more reasons. Maybe earlier I would be like, we can't afford it. It feels too big. I haven't made it to the summit of this experience yet. But I was already at the top of my career trajectory. I was in the C suite, slated to take over, and it just didn't feel good. It just didn't feel like the next thing for me. And so it was somewhat fortuitous. At the same time, I had a young son who was a teen who, listening to a conference call one day, standing in the doorway, listening to his mom work. I had put the phone on mute for a minute to ask if he needed anything. And he said something really poignant to me. He's like, "When is it going to be your turn?"
Mm.
I'm listening to all these people argue on the phone, Mom. No one's taking counsel. You're so much better than this. Like, when are you gonna write the book already? And I'm standing there going, this moment's unexpected, and yet you're kind of being called out by your kid who you're like, "But I'm, like, a respected professional. I've reached a high point in my career. It's affording a lifestyle we're all enjoying here." And yet he saw right through it. When are you gonna make that jump and do the thing that you're meant to do?
Mhm.
That stuck with me for a while, and it just kind of worked out when we got back from Greece. I normally would have, like, one day kind of attitude, and I didn't have a one day attitude about it then. I sat there and said, "If not now, when? If not
Mm.
now, when? It's never gonna be the right time." And so I got back and the wheels were in motion. I had that moment of bravery where I'm like, "I'm gonna resign," without knowing exactly what the next step is, because for me, my career was very all-consuming.
Yeah.
And I'm not suggesting that everybody should leave their career at all. It was a line for me to do that at that moment, but it was a big deal. I had grown up with very little. I had done very well. So to leave that level of security and knowing it was going to have a massive impact on my family's day to day experience was not something I took lightly. But I also know if I didn't do it then, I don't know that I would have come back to it. I think I would have felt like that window may have shut for me, and
Mm.
maybe I would have come back around to it, but it was pointing in all the directions. Now is the time. Now is the time. Not gonna get more. Yes, your son's still in high school. Yes, he's going off to college soon. All the more reason to do it now. All the more
Yeah.
reason. Go now.
Oh my gosh, I love your story. So, okay, I kind of want to go back and then I want to go forward a little bit. So,
Yeah.
you mentioned an awakening. And the reason I would love for you to just share a little bit about your experience is because what I hear a lot, and certainly what I thought in my own life, I used to feel like there was going to just be this one moment, this one singular profound moment where I would all of a sudden just know exactly who I was and what I was here to do and what was I was going to be most fulfilled, and then that would be the moment that changed everything, right? That's kind of that
Yeah.
happily ever after tale we're all sold and we buy when we're young, and not just about men, but also about our life and our purpose.
Yeah.
And that has not been my experience. Not to say that's not going to be everyone's experience. And I know for you, it wasn't either. It was a process,
Mm-mm.
right? There were very specific moments that prepared you to make that move. And so tell us about this awakening you had in your 20s.
Oof, it's a big one. In my late 20s, I was working as a director of communications for a large organization. I was also in grad school on a scholarship, and I was doing a really intense business and Latin American studies program. It was a really big deal. I was on scholarship. There was a lot riding on me doing well. And when I had taken the opportunity to go do this grad school experience, and I'd already been to grad school, so this was like my second run at it, I had told the people I was working for, I've got to stop. This is full time on scholarship. And they were like, no, no, no. Just keep your job. We need you here. Do what you need to do. And my people pleasing experience was, well, I don't want to let anyone down, so I'm going to do it all.
Mhm.
So I found myself in this place, young, vital, full of energy, running from point A to point B from my little apartment in Georgetown here in Washington, D.C., any given day. And I always remember there was this one day, I mean, I'd been doing this now, it was like a 2-year program and it was around the clock kind of thing. And I was at work early in the morning. I'd run to class across town. I'd come back to work and I'd go back to class late at night. I'd study with my colleagues. I'd stay up late working on papers or what have you. I'd get up early in the morning, work out. I'd go back to work. And it was slowly but surely just consuming me to the point where I was exhausted. But
Mhm.
because I was so used to doing whatever I needed to do to succeed, like that was just my MO. Like there's nothing that can stop me. I can outperform, outwork, out whatever anybody, except for you can. At some point, it catches up with you. And I was getting sick and I didn't even realize I was getting sick. And my body was getting worn down. And I was going through bouts of like horrific headaches. I mean, to the point where, I would have these moments where they were so intense that I couldn't see. And I was like,
Were they like migraines?
they were. And I ended up having to go into the hospital and get back then injections. It coincides with a lot of women in their 20s, but when you're under tremendous stress and pressure,
Yeah.
they can be brought on. And it was a period of my life. I never had it before. I've never had it since. But I was
Yeah.
going through that period where they were so intense. I'd be on the subway trying to get home or in my car going to class. I'd have to pull over and I couldn't see. I'd literally have to just like shut my eyes and let it pass if I could. And all of this stuff was happening. It was wearing me down. I'm going on all cylinders. And I remember parking my car and running into the building where I was working. And there was a hot dog vendor on the corner of 17th Street and New York Avenue in downtown DC, which is right near the White House. And the hot dog vendor was like an Afghan refugee. And he and I became friends because I would stop in there when I had a minute to grab a Diet Coke or what have you between class. And I had stopped going because I didn't have time. And he and his young wife and baby were there every day. And they started calling after me, Michelle, 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 we have something for you. They were feeding me because they were watching me from afar get thinner and thinner and thinner and look tired and more worn down. And they were worried. And here
Mhm.
I am thinking, I've got the world, the world is my oyster. All is going well, right? And what I didn't realize is illness was like upon me. I was really run down. And I slowly but surely started to get really depressed. I could not even have told you that it was depression. I never ever spoke about depression. It was not something that was in my
Yeah.
vocabulary. I was always running and going. If I felt like that, I would have got up and gone harder on the treadmill the next day. There was never this moment in time where I'm like, oh, I just can't deal. I would always figure a way to deal. But it got to a point where one day I couldn't even get out of bed. It was physically impossible to get out of bed. I was just exhausted. And I had been going months and months and months on end like this. And it got to the point where that particular day was the first day I've ever not wanted to continue another day in my life. And it
Mm.
was a very scary moment of realizing, like, I'm at a place now where I don't want to exist in this experience.
Yeah.
And I'd never thought that before. I was always, like, so grateful, so excited about what was coming up for me. Whatever it was, even if it wasn't my initial dream, it just felt like, "What a great opportunity just unfolded. I gotta pursue that now. And here's
Mhm.
another great opportunity." And I lived in Spain on a scholarship. I lived in Barcelona. I lived in Salamanca. I traveled all over Europe for Rotary International. I came back. I was at Georgetown University. I was on a full scholarship. I'm the director of communications. I'm young. I'm going out with my friends. The world is great, except for it wasn't. I'm
Mhm.
pursuing all this stuff and getting more tired and more worn down because I was basically achieving goals that didn't have a lot of meaning for me. They were exciting and intellectually stimulating and all of that, but my soul was just felt like it was in a prison. I
Yeah.
would remember waking up that day and going, I feel like I'm on a treadmill that's never going to end. It's never going to stop. And I don't know how to get off. And I don't want to do this anymore. And that was the first time I was really afraid. I didn't work this hard to get to this point to not want to go on anymore. And that was probably the first confrontation of my soul and my actual experience of how I was living were in such conflict. It took a whole day of not going into the office, riding around the city on a bus, fairly lost in my thoughts and trying to just be safe.
Mhm.
And then eventually talking to a counselor that same day. A lot of fortuitous things happened. It was like a very magical day in a lot of ways. But
Yeah.
that bus happened to stop on our circle through the city at a particular stop where I looked up and it said Community Mental Health Center. And for the first time in my life, I said, I guess this is where I was meant to get off today, and
Yeah.
walked in and ended up speaking to somebody. And I remember the most poignant question she asked me was, okay, I hear you. I hear you've worked so hard. You have a lot going on. This is a big life. You're exhausted. So what do you want?
Mm.
I remember thinking, what do you mean? What do I want? And she's like, yeah, what do you want? And I remember thinking for the first time, am I allowed to want something specific for me? I've just been doing all these things that have sort of unfolded for me and maybe expectations others had for me, but I don't know that I ever asked what I wanted. It sort of was like the next step of the rung on the ladder. That's what I pursued next. And I didn't have an answer right away. And she said, well, you can't leave until you answer the question. So she said, I really want you to just say what comes to your heart, not what you logically think you should say to me. And that was probably the first day I answered it with, like, I want to know that at the end of it all, that my life mattered.
Mhm.
And she's like, well, why don't you think it matters now? And I said, well, I'm working on a lot of really important things, and they're intellectually stimulating. And it's exciting to be in this environment of really high caliber people, but I don't know that it really matters.
Mhm.
And she's like, well, what would matter for you? And I was like, I want to know that my existence and what I do on a day to day basis will inspire somebody or change somebody's life for the better. And
Mhm.
I didn't know what that meant at the moment. I mean, I had been exposed to Wayne Dyer and I had read his books and I'd seen him in person. I'd gone to one of his talks at DAR, the Daughters of American Revolution. He did a talk and it really did open my eyes to a lot of things. But the idea that that could be something that I would pursue as a living felt very far away from that moment
Mhm.
and the stage I was on, despite being in the thick of it all, of a lot of really, I was at these massive global climate change meetings where leaders of the G7 were meeting, and I was at the White House, and I was on Capitol Hill, and I was in all of these halls of power and influence, and it didn't feel like it mattered.
Mhm.
And that's not to say it wouldn't for somebody else, but for me, it was an awakening moment of like, I have to find work or experiences that are going to be more soul aligned than where I'm at right now. And I don't know quite how to do that, but I know what it feels like. And
Yeah.
so that was probably that first moment for me. And now
Mm.
things didn't change overnight, but
Yeah.
it definitely shook my foundation of like, I can't keep sleepwalking.
Mm.
And nobody around me would have ever accused me of sleepwalking through life, but I was. You can be high functioning, high achieving, all of these things and still settling on the sidelines. And a lot of people don't understand that. Like, I use that concept a lot. Like, I was doing all these really big things, getting awards and promotions and climbing at the quote unquote early prime of my life. And
Yeah.
yet I felt like I was not tapping into any of my full potential. I was really playing in a safe space. Like these are things that other people maybe didn't want to exert the effort to go after. I get that. But I knew how to play that game, and that was a safe game I could win. Even if it was a big exertion of energy to win in those circles, I could win in those circles. The idea that I could write a book, that it would make a difference, that I could speak on stage and that my story would matter, that somehow I could get paid for being who I was, not just doing a whole bunch of stuff, just seemed out of the realm of possibilities
Yeah.
at the time. But there was that awakening of like, man, wouldn't that be amazing? That's what I really want to do. So it started then.
Hey, sister, let's take a quick pause because I want to tell you about something I have just released. It is a free numerology quiz called Uncover the Hidden Patterns Shaping Your Life. And all you need is your date of birth. Here's what you're going to walk away with: your life path number, the curriculum you came here to master, and clarity on the hidden pattern that has been quietly running your life without you even knowing it was there. Because once you can see it, you can stop blaming yourself for it. You realize it was never a you problem. It was just a pattern you hadn't seen clearly yet. And once you can see it, you can actually do something about it. One of my clients said it best. She said, Anniston didn't just tell me about my path, she helped me remember it. That is what this quiz does. The link is in the show notes. It is free and it is worth every minute. Now back to the episode. First of all, I thank you for sharing that story. And I can relate to it so much. Even the Wayne Dyer part, he was like a huge spiritual gateway for me. I remember distinctly, I think I was around 25 or 26 when I first saw him on
Mm.
PBS.
Yes.
And literally, I didn't even know PBS. I never watched anything on PBS in my life. And I was like flicking through cable because we had cable those days, not streaming. And I heard his voice and it like stopped me in my tracks. And then I went and read all these books. So I love that you shared this story because it typically is it is moments like that that it's like all of a sudden we get, I call it little cracks in the scaffolding, right? It's like all of a sudden what seems so secure, what seems so real, there's now like this question mark there of like, but what if it could be different? Or what if what I thought I wanted isn't actually necessarily what I wanted, or maybe I did want it and it was great and it's not right anymore. And so it just gives you enough pause. But then once you start to really land into, okay, this is who I want to be, I believe, and I think you probably agree with me, there's a qualification process that has to happen, right? And so
Oh, yeah.
in your late 20s, right,
Mhm.
couldn't probably at that place where you were with the level of consciousness that you had and the level of life experience that you had, you might not have been potentially ready to serve the women that you were meant to serve.
Oh, God, no. No. I really needed to grow up. So it's one thing to have the notion, and I really do admire the folks that start off knowing now, like the Gen Zs that are coming out and going directly into this
They're so
space.
woke.
Yeah, I'm like, well, they have Gen X and millennial parents that help raise them into this space. So, yeah.
100%.
But we didn't have that experience. And so for me, I really felt, even in my late 20s, that I was not yet grown up enough, nor did I have enough life experience to really do this from a place of authority or lived experience. I did have the curiosity to want a big career that I could draw from.
Mhm.
So for me, I often you sit on the fence. Did I delay it or was it really actually what I was supposed to go through anyway?
Uh-huh.
Because I now can talk with authority of what it is like to get to the executive level of corporate
Yes.
leadership and the ups and the downs. I would never tell anybody that that was a wasted experience. I still find it probably the most profound work experience I've ever had. Taught me both what I want and what I don't want, and quite frankly, honed a lot of my skills that I use now on this entrepreneurial journey. So I
Uh-huh.
don't for a minute regret it. Now, are there moments I wish my timeline had been accelerated and I'd come to this conclusion sooner? Sure. But here we are.
Yeah.
And I think for many of us, going through the experience of raising children, building careers, actually was the feeder to getting to the entrepreneurial journey. I'm baffled with people who just like that isn't even in their equation and they go right to becoming entrepreneurials right out of the gate. That is a fascinating decision for me, like, to watch people do that and to see so many succeed at that. Certainly wasn't my journey,
Yeah.
and I love that I'm in this, I was kinda think late to the party in a lot of ways, like, getting to midlife, is also, I think, the time when so many of these decisions are ripe for you. And certainly was for me. I love hearing the stories of like, hey, she was 49 before she made it, or 54 or 62. And I'm like, right on time. This is
Yes.
exactly the trajectory that I was supposed to have because if I had done it sooner, so many of the things that I experienced wouldn't be knowledge and experience to bring to bear to my clients and quite
Mhm.
frankly to the stages that I'm on or what have you.
Mhm. I often think about too the feminine archetypes. And I think
Mm.
we should actually think about this a little bit deeper. Or I wish that this was taught a little bit more prevalently because I think there's a lot to learn from it. We start out as these like maidens and we're just like full of life and hope and we don't really know 100% who we are, but that's kind of where we are. And then we start moving through these archetypes. Then we get to our 40s, which is typically like the wild woman phase, right? This is when
Mhm.
all of a sudden, oftentimes, you are a little bit more rooted in your career, you have your direction, your life has kind of stabilized a bit, and then all of a sudden, midlife, like 40s come and you're like, "Well, what do I want now? My kids are growing up." You know what I mean? So you kinda hit this, and so this is your reclaiming power phase. This is when you start really examining the masks and you process all that repressed rage.
You care less about what everyone else
Oh, you don't
thinks.
give 2 Fs what anyone well, you have to go through the healing so that you don't give 2 Fs about what anyone thinks.
You care less Fs, but I can talk now from the next
Yeah,
level of the
yeah.
club of the 50s, 0 Fs. So that is the graduation.
And that's what I'm saying. So crones, like the crone, I always hated that name. I'm like, could they not have workshopped that a little bit more? But like the crone is all about the wise woman. It's the woman
Yeah.
who's lived it. She knows who she is. She can see through the BS. She doesn't allow, like, she's gotten past the whole reactionary phase. Like now she's kind of sitting in her perch, like in her knowingness. And in my opinion, that's who I want to be coached by, the crone, right? Because the crone is, or either give me the wild woman or give me the crone, because that person has lived it. She is
Yes.
walking her talk. She is coaching from an integrity because she's lived it, not because she's read a lot of books or listened to a lot of podcasts and she's just consumed a lot. It's more of a visceral knowing. And so when she teaches, you feel it in your bones. It's like the transformation is deep because her knowledge is deep. Does that make any
Yeah, and
sense?
I think when you're teaching from the path,
Yeah.
even at the crone experience, I think the beauty of those who are at that summit still walking the path because
Yeah.
I think there's often a confusion that if you go the route of leaving the traditional path, the conventional path, it's because somehow you're tired or somehow
Yeah.
you're burned out from the whole experience. That could be the case for some people. I would argue that it's often because so many of your needs for legacy, mattering, the things that start to really come up for you at midlife aren't being met. And you're willing to risk, however it looks to everybody else, because
Yeah.
again, we're in this 0 F's to give phase, to in order to meet those things because you know that that is what matters
Yes.
and setting a path for others and leaving a legacy that
Yeah.
is going to matter. It goes back to that conversation I had with that therapist at 27. What do you really want? I want to know that when I get to the end of all of this, that my life mattered, that what
Mm.
I stood for, that what I lived wasn't just, not that I ever was going to be this, but that I didn't just go to a factory and assemble things in a row and didn't think about it. And I lived on autopilot and I got up and it was a wash, rinse, repeat experience of my life. And then I get to the end and die. Like
Yeah.
that to me was like, no. And I knew people who had lived that experience. We're not so far removed that we can't remember in our family histories the fact that our grandparents were willing to just go through a different experience than us, right? Each generation has their own thing. They were willing to tolerate a very different experience in existence. They asked something different of life than I think what we're asking. I'm not saying it's better or worse. I think it's different. We're in a space where I think we are questioning very intentionally, which is a very privileged place to be. I get it.
Mhm.
what we want our life to be about. And the fact that we have agency over that and you have an opportunity to decide how is that going to unfold for you is a beautiful place to be. And it's not afforded to everyone. I get that. Not everyone's born into our experience, and particularly in the country we live in.
Yep.
It's afforded to us. But I also do think it is a lifetime and a generational shift that we're seeing. My
Yeah.
parents look back and they're like, God, you're so brave. And I think, no, you were so brave. Like what I'm doing feels like so soul aligned. There's a bravery component, no doubt. I get it. But like it just feels so soul aligned.
Yeah.
I feel like pushing the boulder up the hill for 20 more years is a courageous and yet a fate I didn't want to be part of anymore. And I watched them do that.
Mhm.
They're finally getting to an age where like, oh, well, now we can breathe a little. And I was like, yeah, I don't want that. Like, I want to breathe now.
You wanna breathe now.
I want to breathe now.
It's kinda like that the Maslow's hierarchy, right? Where it's our parents and, our grandparents and great-grandparents and beyond. Life was really about, like, survival. A lot of times, they didn't get to work their way up that hierarchy very, very high because their safety was in question. Food wasn't always there. They were taught how to survive. And now, through modern day technology, through just the expansion of humanity and where we are, and not in every part of the world, but in the blessed part of the world where we are living right now, survival, okay. I don't wake up questioning that. So,
Right.
what then, right? So, if you're not questioning survival, well, now it's like, okay, let's move up the ranks to meaning. And also, I don't know if you've read Dr. David Hawkins' book, Power versus Force. Have you read that?
Yeah. I love that book.
So for those of you that are listening, highly recommend the book, but essentially it has this like map of consciousness and it's like measurements for emotion on at the end of the scale at the lowest vibrational energy is shame and guilt. But when you get up to like 500, you get up into like love and then you get up into gratitude. But you want to know what's even higher than all of that? At 700, meaning.
Mhm.
It's meaning. So really what it is, I think it's this intrinsic knowing that there's something better. That when you can wake up every day and who you are being is literally the frequency of meaning, meaning you're devoted to something, meaning like that your life means something, that you get that juicy, good feeling every single day that you've helped someone
Yeah.
or that what you're doing is going to help someone. Like that is priceless. That is the good life.
It really is. To me, that's what living an extraordinary life is all about. When you have the opportunity to really be so attuned to what your soul's calling you forward to do, and then brave enough to walk that path. Does it lead to fireworks every day? Not necessarily, but I will say this, it leads to a much more ambitious life of alignment because I
Yes.
think what happens is, and I get this question a lot, does it mean you're tuned out and like sitting on a beach somewhere? I'm like, I love sitting on a beach, but no, my everyday extraordinary life does not involve me and the beach. But I will say it does involve me being in this place of attunement to what my soul is asking me to go walk through
Mhm.
and feeling that my life for the first time in many ways that what I value and the activities that I surround myself in doing are indeed aligned and that they correspond for a very long time. I would say to anybody who asks me, because it was part of my very ambitious outlook in the world, they're like, what matters most to you? And I was like, becoming financially independent. As a kid who had nothing, I thought that was the mecca. So
Yeah.
I chased money. I chased it hard. And looking back, I didn't chase it well enough. If I were, I probably would have gone right to law school. And instead, I was like, I don't want to really go to law school. I'm so creative. And that was planned for me. I was going to go to
Yeah.
law school. My sister would go to med school. My brother would go to law school. I did not go to law school. I went to business school. My sister did not go to med school, but she became a psychologist. And my brother did go to law school. So somebody went
You
to
got
law
one.
school. So they got one out of the three. But it was this recognition for me finally that I was chasing money, thinking that at a certain level, I would feel whole. And I spent a really long time doing that. I mean, I
Mhm.
was well into my early 40s. I would even say mid 40s. I knew it was not what I was supposed to be doing. And yet I was hoofing hard to get to that next level, going, no, there'll be relief or on the other side of this promotion or on the other side of this recognition or accolade. It's coming. It's coming. And the bigger house and the better vacation. And we had all of those things. and they kept coming. I had on paper what anyone would have said. This is extraordinary. You're living the life. And I did enjoy it. I don't want anyone to think I was like miserable in my beautiful home. I was not. I just didn't feel like it was enough. It didn't have enough
Mhm.
meaning. And it was a really great lesson for me to be able to impart onto the kids, my son and my nieces and nephews, of like, please don't chase the money.
Mhm.
Chase what your heart is asking you to chase. Chase what you think will provide you great experiences. The money will come.
Mhm.
Get good at it, money will come, I promise you. Because I chased it and I was willing to do anything because to get it, I would take on the assignments nobody else wanted. I would go as on the other side of the globe. I did a lot of things that resulted in self-abandonment
Yeah.
over and over and over again. And for me, the great discovery was it was okay. I mean, it was unfortunate that I had to go through that many self-abandonments over my adulthood to realize you can still come home again. You can still come back to yourself. There's still an opportunity to forgive yourself and have self-love and make a different choice. It's the door doesn't close. Whether you become brave enough to walk through the door is another story. For me, it was sort of an inevitable next step of like, I got to the perch and the summit and said, huh, not the way I thought it would feel. Got a beautiful opportunity to go on these massive vacations, and that felt really good, and I knew that I
Mhm.
had worked my way to that, but that level of just the soul exhaling and going, "I did it," didn't come. Instead,
Yeah.
it was like, "Okay, this isn't quite it, so what next?" And the what next was the easy part. To be honest, it's been the easy part. Not to say entrepreneurism is easy. God help me. There are some
No.
days where I wanna, like, cry into a pillow, and I do cry
If you
into a
wanna grow
pillow.
spiritually, become an entrepreneur.
It will test you on every level. I really
Every
do
level.
think they're like, "Oh, you want more meaning? Great. I'm gonna give you this problem, and it's gonna seem like the most bane problem in the world to really test you in that principle."
Yes.
And why don't we give you a bunch of other life transitions to, like, maneuver and navigate at the
Mhm.
same time to see if you're really certain that that principle is holding for you? Let's just see how spiritual you are and how much enlightenment you've experienced. Because when it tests you right down to your bone of, do I believe I have it in me to follow this calling? And it happens so often to so many really wonderful people that are doing their best to spread goodness and do the right thing, but it happens frequently. So I always say, do it, but go in with your eyes wide open that you will be tested.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this. This past year has been a beautiful, brutal year of transitions. Beautiful
Mhm.
transitions. Our son graduated high school. He went off to college at one of the most prestigious colleges in the country. He's thriving. And yet, there was part of me that was grieving this recognition that my role as a mother was
Mhm.
shifting. It wasn't that it was going away, but certainly he's not here every day, and for the
Yeah.
last 18 years, he's been the prominent fixture in the middle of our lives,
Mhm.
and to have to let go, I can't say that I've been the most gracious letting go mom, like, I've had struggled with it at times where I was
Mhm.
like, I'm better than this. I'm so much more enlightened. No, it's like it hits you in waves of like, I'm so proud of him. It's so exciting. We're so excited to watch him do all these cool things and grieve that little boy that's not tied at your hip anymore, saying, Mommy,
Yeah.
one day I'm going to marry you. And
Yeah.
realizing like, no, he's a girlfriend and he's all grown up and in lots of ways. But he still calls home and says, Mom, can I talk? Can we talk? So that's good. And all the things. We are very settled in a very affluent lifestyle. We've maintained a really high quality of life. And my husband's business went haywire last year. And we found ourselves in a whole rebuild on that front. And he was my anchor for my
Mhm.
entrepreneurial journey. And I was like,
Yeah.
wait, what? I was expecting to be the like question mark in the equation, not you. And like, now what? And it's been a walk in faith,
Yes.
a walk of believing in one another,
Mhm.
and a recognition that you actually need so much less than you think.
Yeah.
Like for me, I have built this environment where I didn't even realize it. It took really kind of stepping back to realize I'm in a really great spot in a lot of ways because I had come from so little. My parents were 16 and 18 when they had me.
Mhm.
We had nothing. We lived in very rural part of the country. It was just hard. I grew up with
Yeah.
my parents. And yet, for me, I kept growing and acquiring more. I didn't have an understanding that I had enough. And I would argue my siblings went through something very similar. They've done very, very well, but it's also been, I think, a shield from the pain of growing up with very little and the scarcity mindset that we went through, that we had to have more and more and more and more and more and more in order to feel safe.
Yeah.
And getting to this place where here we are in the middle of midlife, where everything, the whole apple cart got upset last year. And our whole sense of like stability was wobbly, and parents were getting ill, and we didn't know whether we were going to be planning a funeral imminently, and coming to realization that we will have to do that at some point soon, that our transition of being children of our parents' children to being our parents' caretakers was a real shift, and it became our reality this past year. Reinventing my husband's business at the same time I'm building mine became a
Yeah.
reality. Saying goodbye to our son and letting him launch into the world became a reality. Renegotiating 22 years of marriage, and which everything's laid bare when there's just the two of you left and you're not running to soccer practice and after school and in school activities and this and that and swim team, and all of that's gone, and it's just the two of you and what you're building next. There's a lot of, what do you really need? And I had gotten to this place where my comfort level came with like a lot of cushion. Like, I need all of this cushion in order to feel safe. And the reality is, some of our cushion got eroded in the last year just because of
Yeah.
the reality of what we were going through. And here was the really beautiful thing: we're fine.
Yeah.
We're more than fine. We found ourselves slow dancing in our kitchen last night, realizing we're more than fine
Mhm.
and we're going to be great. And it's all good. And this is part of the journey. And that, I don't think, had this all transpired sooner, I would have had the wherewithal to realize that we were safe and that we were going to be okay. It was all good. It was all part of our growth, and that we could go through hard things, really hard things. We'd been through a lot of hard things, but more hard things, and come out the other side with something even more beautiful than where we started before these hard things all happened. That it actually could mold us and shape us into something more beautiful than when we
Mhm.
started. I thought it was slowly chipping away at the place we had been, right? We're at the top and it's all these things are
Like
bringing
you're
us down.
losing.
Yeah, we're losing, we're going backwards. And instead, we're coming out on the other side
Mhm.
realizing, oh, this is part of the shaping. This is part of the next level identity evolution. This is the next
Yes.
level of stepping into the next chapter of our lives. And that is really comforting to realize, like, wow, I need so much less than I thought I did. And we have so much more than we actually need. And all of it, all of the noise, all of the stuff that's transpired, all the reality of the realness of life is all part of that journey. And it's good. I think that hard part of watching my husband more in the depth of his, my father in law was in a coma for almost 2 weeks in
Mhm.
January. And that experience, he came through the other end, but he had to learn to talk again, walk again, and he's 87. So we're not under any illusion that he's going to bounce back to where he was at 65, but he's healthier and he's at home and he's comfortable, and we're settling into this new normal. And for my husband and I to look at each other realizing death of our parents, probably one of the most profound and difficult things you go through, right? And to have those conversations and realize Gosh, I can't imagine going through this with anyone but you. I'm so grateful I have you. And I know I'm going to be okay because I know it's going to happen. And I'm not afraid of it anymore. It's going to be okay. When it happens, we'll go through it and we'll come out the other side. That
Mhm.
was something that neither one of us, we kind of punted, like, we have a lot going on. Nobody can die. Like, that's not in our bingo card. And
Like,
instead
we're on your
realizing,
goal this month. Like,
like,
we
everybody step back. Nobody gets to do any of this, and only one person can break down at a time. So take a number, people, and realize, like, we have no say on that. That this is really the best we can do is be open to the experiences that are unfolding
Mhm.
and recognize that as painful as they may be in any given moment, and like God knows, 2025 and the beginning of 2026 have served up some real humdingers. It's all going to be okay. And that's a huge relief. And I don't think we realize, I think we all kind of hold our breath like, this thing's happening and it's awfully difficult. And I don't even want to talk about it. But instead, we've used it as, for me, it's been fuel for the book, which has been great, of like, oh, this is what being on the path and not talking about it from the summit is.
Yes, looks like.
This is what it looks like. I'm still on the path. I never got off the path. I'm still on the path. I might be a little bit ahead of the path than some people, but like I'm on the path just like everyone
Mhm.
else. And I'm still on my own journey. And there are still new levels to scale and get to. And that requires crossing some difficult paths. It's not going to be like incident free
Mm-mm.
as much as I would love it to be like, just, take a break. I'd like
Take
some
it
detente for a little bit.
It's like I heard that Oprah once say on one of her shows, she was, like, going through a really hard time and just one thing after another, and she said, "One day I just yelled out, 'Dear God, please don't teach me anything today.'
I
Dear God,
don't need any more lessons.
I don't
Like,
want any more lessons." And I think that, what's so beautiful, and I think this is I know we're about to close out, but what's so beautiful about you sharing this story and being willing to share through what has been one of your more recent initiations, because I do believe we're always being initiated into our next level. And that looks like hard stuff. Okay, let's just face it, because by human nature, we don't learn and grow and expand when everything is copacetic, when it's like 80 degrees and sunny outside, like, and everything is great. We actually, where we expand is through the pressure, it's through intensity. That is a law of nature. It's a law of the universe. If you look at anything outside, any part of nature that is growing and expanding, it always comes through intense heat, intense pressure. It's catalytic, it can be painful. But on the other side of that is the butterfly, right? It's the next evolution of who you are. And what I was thinking as you were talking, because for you, extraordinary life, it's what you teach, right? It's helping women really create their own extraordinary life. And what I was thinking the whole time was like, all along, I think we've always felt like an extraordinary life is it looks a certain way, or it sounds a certain way, or it's achievement of certain things. You've got all this in order, when in all reality, it's always been a perspective.
absolutely.
It's a lens. It's actually a lens that you look through of this is my extraordinary life, and the good and the bad, and all of that makes it that much more extraordinary.
And it looks very different for different people. And here's the thing, everyone thinks, oh, I must be in more of a Yoda like stage of my life. And I somewhat am, but I would say I still really like the Dolce Vita, right? Like, I like nice things and I like going to nice places, but I like doing it from a place of alignment versus in
Yeah.
a place of escape to it. And I
Yeah.
need to have it to somehow justify all of the other things that are transpiring in my life. I'm going to share this one moment because it kind of summed up 2025 for me. I found myself in mid December sitting in my car. I just got out of the gym. It was late. It was later than I normally go to the gym. It was an evening work session. I'd been lifting weights with a trainer, and my OBGYN called me. My OBGYN never calls me.
Yeah.
So when I see her name flash up on the screen, I answered it right away.
Yeah.
And she said, "Hey, we found something on your mammogram. You got to come back in. I'm worried about it. And I don't want it. It's the holidays. I just don't want this to get lost in the cracks of the holidays and we don't come back to it until January.
Mm.
We got to get this checked right away." So it's dark. I'm sitting in a parking lot that's basically empty. It's probably like 7 o'clock at night. And I've got this sinking feeling of like they found something on a mammogram. At the same time, my father-in-law was in ICU and dying. He had gotten MRSA and a visit to the ER, and it wasn't going well. He was losing the battle at that point. That was happening. My son was in finals for college. It was his first semester. It was under a lot of stress. It was an incredibly competitive school, and it was bearing down hard on him. My husband was going through his first cycle of we're coming through the holidays, and this has been a financially tough year for us.
Mhm.
And that came with a lot of feelings.
Mhm.
And I'm sitting there in the parking lot going, huh, one more thing. And I drove home, and my husband's going 90 miles a minute talking to me as we're cooking dinner, and I haven't said anything yet. I'm sort of kind of going through the motions and processing the fact that I've got to go now, go get a bunch of tests. And there's one more thing. And he said to me, this happened today and this happened today. And how are you? And I just looked at him and going, I'm not sure. Like this just happened and everything stopped. And he goes, whatever it is, it might be nothing, but whatever it is, we're going to make it through fine. Like trust me. We're going to make it through. And it's what's
Mhm.
supposed to happen.
Mhm.
And I just sort of let go. I mean, I literally had been walking around the house, coming home from this phone call with this tension in my body. And I just sort of let it go in that moment. And I remember thinking, I'm scared, but I'm also just given to it. Like, I'm
Yeah.
just surrendering that whatever is going to unfold here, we're going to be fine.
Mm.
And I realized at so many of the points in my life where there was something big and scary happening before, I held my breath. I physically tensed up and I walked through life like a lot of the times like this. And here
Yeah.
I was in this point where I was just like, there's nothing I can do. Let it go. Let it go for this moment. And we just had a quiet evening. It ended up being fine. I got to the
Yeah.
other side, it was fine. But there was this 3-week period of like exasperation of like, what? And I did a lot of breathing during that time of like, just allow it to unfold and recognize that even in this moment, things are pretty damn extraordinary.
Yeah.
And in those moments, my son came home. We went to see my father in law, loved on him the best we could, went and walked around our beautiful city by the water with our son back home post exams. He survived the exams. The results came back from a whole round of testing that said, "You're okay." And we
Mhm.
just exhaled together, and in that moment, I was like, I've never felt at this age, in my 50s, more serene, beautiful, loved. It's extraordinary.
Yeah. Mm. Wow. Sister, that story really hit. Like, I really, really felt that, and I think that this has been such a powerful conversation, and I want to really ground this for anyone that's listening and just to know that there is perfection in it all, and that there's always the good, there's always the silver lining, and it really takes, I think, looking for it and trusting that if you can't see it yet, you will. But I also think surrounding yourself with people who will help remind you of that because when you are in that place, and I know you know, Michelle, it's like when all you can see is just challenge all around you, it feels like a punishment. It feels like you did something wrong. It feels like you should blame yourself for something. You can't see the forest through the trees. It's like you have to be able to have someone who can stand outside and give you a different view, a different way. And you are such a brilliant person. It's
Oh,
one of the reasons why I love listening to your podcast and the Extraordinary Life podcast. You guys have to check it out. Like she has the most incredible guests and just unbelievable
including
conversation.
Anniston?
Oh, well, I've been on there once or twice. We love to come on in each other's spaces. And you're writing a book all about this, which is even more incredible. I can't wait to have you back on the show as that book is launching and we can celebrate with you and
Oh, thank
hear even
you.
more. I'd love to hear more about your process of it all coming to be and getting it out into the world. But how can listeners find you? How can they seek you out? How can they work with you? Tell us all the things.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. I've enjoyed being in conversation with you as always. But listeners can find me on social at Michelle Rios Official. I'm always on Instagram. Also, you can find me at michelleriosofficial.com. That's my website. Or come check out the podcast at Live Your Extraordinary Life with Michelle Rios.
Beautiful. I am so grateful to you. Thank you for your time, your genius, your heart, and for your just incredible vulnerability and being willing to take us along with you on your journey and learn from you. And for those of you that tuned in today, I love you. I see you. And I cannot wait to catch you on next week's episode.
Thank you for being here, beautiful soul. If this episode spoke to you, I'd love for you to pass it along to another woman who might need these words today. And if you feel called, it would mean so much if you would take a moment to rate and review this podcast. It's one of the best ways to support this work and help these messages reach more women who are ready to remember who they are. And if you'd like to stay connected or share what's landing for you, come find me over on Instagram. I'd love to meet you there. Until next time, keep trusting your rhythm, keep honoring your voice, and keep becoming the woman you were always meant to be.